Hi guys, in this video we're going to look at the things you may need to consider when signing up for your first triathlon. This is Life of Tri. So before you sign up for your first race, there's a number of things you need to consider, and this will just help you understand what is in front of you and whether triathlon is for you. So the first thing you need to consider is the reason you're doing it. What is your motivation for doing this particular event, race, or just the training? It all depends on, again, what you're trying to achieve from it. So having your specific goal is important, and we do other videos on goal setting, so please check them out. But are you looking to do a specific race, or are you looking just to get fit? So realistically, what I'm trying to say is, are you looking to get fit in general, and triathlon is that vehicle? Or are you looking for a specific challenge and you've decided a triathlon race is that challenge, whether that be a sprint triathlon all the way up to something like an Ironman? What you decide to do is important to you, because that is going to be your motivation for continuing through the difficult training sessions, maybe through the winter months, the cold days, the dark days. All of this is your motivation to get to your end point or your end goal. So if your goal is to do a specific race, you need to consider what that race is, where it is, how you're going to get there, whether you need to stay over, the cost of it, if you have equipment, how you're going to get your equipment there. All of that is important. If it's a local race, brilliant. You probably don't need to consider many things other than cost and probably getting there on the day. But if it's a bit further afield, you may need to consider travel, especially if it's abroad, how you're going to get your equipment there. You may need to consider then accommodation. Accommodation is important because some people think they can just rock up at a race, do it and then go home. But with triathlon, often you have to go to registration a day before, especially if it's a larger event or a longer distance event. They like you to go there the day before, get your race pack, get everything sorted, possibly even put your gear in transition the day before as well. But again, it all depends on the race. So check out the race website, contact the organisers if you need to, just to ask some of these questions. Which does bring us on to equipment, and ultimately, I said it earlier, triathlon can be an expensive sport. You need to consider what equipment you need. So for a swim, you'll need a basic swimming gear as regards to your bathers, or some people will use a tri-suit, some people will use a two-piece. Also, if it's swimming outdoors, you might need a wetsuit. So again, need to consider what the conditions are and the type of race it is, and whether you need that additional equipment like a wetsuit. Moving on to the bike, you may need a road bike, or in some circumstances it may be an off-road triathlon, so you might need something like a mountain bike. So again, check out what the race organisers are saying about that particular race, just so you understand what type of equipment you will need. Your running gear is probably stuff that you may not need to consider as much as your swim and your run gear, because it's probably your bike gear, because it's probably stuff you already have. What I will say about your equipment is you don't necessarily need to go out and buy brand new. Triathlon is an expensive sport when you start up, so in order to fully understand whether it's for you or not, you may not want to go top of the range, buy brand new straight away. Consider buying second hand, consider borrowing from a friend, or in some circumstances you can definitely hire wetsuits, and you can hire bikes as well, especially if a race is abroad. The only problem you have with hiring is equipment that you might not be used to, so whether you get enough opportunity to tune in the bike or get used to a wetsuit beforehand, that all depends on the race and your run up to the race as well. Triathlon is a time consuming beast, so it's important to understand what actual time you can put towards it. Once you know what you want to do with regards to your goal, and if it's a race, the distance of race, you can probably work backwards then to how much time you may need to give it against how much time you actually have. And that will come into commitment as well, because you may only be able to commit a certain amount of time because you've got other aspects to consider, like family, like work, and other interests. What may have to happen is that you have to give up something in order to complete this particular goal or objective. And we've mentioned it already, cost. Triathlon can be a very, very expensive sport. So going back to what I said earlier, don't be afraid to buy second hand. Don't be afraid to borrow from friends if it's your first triathlon. Because what you can always do is, if you've got a feel for the sport and you love it, brilliant. I would encourage anyone to try the sport, but if you don't enjoy it, there's no point staying in it. Don't stay in it just for the sake of it, just because other friends are doing it. But if you enjoy it, then is the time to upgrade. If you go into your second season or your second race and you're really, really enjoying it, only then should you consider, or should I get that next bike? Should I get the next best wetsuit? What's important is that you try the sport first before you take it any further. Thanks for watching. Hope you found it insightful, and I hope it really helps. If you are getting into triathlon for the first time, our series of videos on the beginner's guide to triathlon will help. Connect with us on social media. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask us questions. We love hearing from the community, and we love being able to help people get into the sport.